How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I've got a little bit of a simple test, but I wanted to do this for my own curiosity, so I thought I'd make a video out of it. I'm basically going to go and do the Pinewood Express contest on Black River, and originally I was going to do it on my next playthrough, but I wanted to take this Derry, and then so that's why I just came back to my first playthrough, and I just thought, oh, sod it, I'll do it on this. And then yeah, when I was about to set off, I was kind of like, do you know what? I'll end up taking both Derrys and do them as a head-to-head. And just actually see if there's much, if any, difference or whatever, and yeah, sort of see how it goes. Because for me personally, I prefer the Derry on the right now, like the one with the moose camo and everything. Since they've raised that middle axle, it's helped the situation. This Derry 4520, like it's not completely unusable, but it's just, I would sort of say it's one of the bigger disappointments in this game, because it's one of the last, if not the last, truck you can actually get in this game. It's as near as makes no difference 200 odd grand, which, you know, you don't just pick up in an hour. That takes a little while to earn in this game. But yeah, it was just more the disappointment of, like, as you're grinding through the levels thinking, oh, I can't wait to get that thing. I kept, you know, flicking past it and having to read of it and all sorts when I was climbing my way through the levels. And yeah, when you actually get it, it's just a bit like, meh. And obviously on this map, this is kind of best case scenario really, because it's the first map in the game. It's a fairly forgiving map overall. The terrain's not ruthless, like, even though you're on dirt tracks and stuff, compared to like Drownlands and Zimnegorst and stuff, the mud isn't insane. But yeah, I just thought I'd do a head-to-head and actually see what happens. So I've got that big long 5-slot trailer on. Again, I really like this trailer. It was doing pretty nicely. I've got to take 4 pieces of wood. The first lot to the drilling site, the second lot to the church, and then the third lot to a house. Like I say, it's the mission itself is just kind of like, to be fair, it's actually quite a fun little mission, but it's just a good excuse to go and test some vehicles. So yeah, first up is Derry 4520. Sadly, I can only do this mission at night. It's not the end of the world, it doesn't really bother me, but if I had the choice when I'm like comparing vehicles and that, I'd rather do it in the daytime. Yeah, overall though, it's not a bad start really from this Derry. I actually managed to stay in high gear as I went out of like the sawmill and up that hill, which, yeah, is a start. It's better than nothing. I did notice that someone said it the other day, and I agree as well. I've thought it for a little while. Like, the steering is a little bit keen on this. I like the fact that it's got rear steer, and for a lot of the situations I've used this, it's going so slow anyway, because you usually end up having to put the off-road gearbox in and you're sitting in low for most of the time, that the steering's not really crazy. But when you actually manage to pick a bit of speed up, it can make it a little bit erratic because it steers very quick. Yeah, cutting through there, that's where this thing kind of like, it starts to suffer. I've drove a lot of trucks through there, a lot of stock stuff recently. Bear in mind, this thing is absolutely fully upgraded to the 9s, so yeah, as soon as I hit that water really, just all the power and effort just kind of died out of it. I had to go down to low range because to put the diffs on, like, this hasn't got diffs permanently on. And yeah, like, this section really is kind of, I've gone down into auto. It's not doing too bad, but again, like, that's now not got any diffs on, and I don't really know what the issue is with this Derry. Well, I'd say a big one is the engine power, but I've also seen and kind of spoke to various people in the comments over the months that have got access to mods and have like just modded the engine power on this, and they said that in its own right doesn't just completely solve the problem. I'm sure it does help a bit because it's going to make it not die as much in high range and all that, but yeah, I mean, that definitely holds it back. I believe this has got the same engine as the Royal, which the Royal is pretty rapid. It's, I believe, one of, if not the fastest truck in the game, but yeah, it's a lot smaller really. It's a lot lighter. It's just kind of like a medium-sized truck compared to this thing. This thing needs more, I would say, like the twin steer engine. It'd be interesting anyway, but yeah, I think it kind of, I don't know, I think there's more on top of that. It's a pretty bloody heavy vehicle for what it is. The wheels feel kind of small. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some type of lack of grip situation going on. As somebody was saying the other week, which was like pretty interesting, that they put the Tatron tyres on the R87, and that made it a much better vehicle, a lot more like commanding through mud and all the rest of it, whereas sadly the R87 does kind of sit on top of the mud and wade quite a lot. So yeah, it'd be interesting, like, when we do get mods, if someone put, say, Tatron tyres on this, and then preferably the twin steer engine, it might be a pretty solid truck. But overall, it wasn't horrific on this map. But like I said, it's Black River, it's not Zimnegorsk or anything. So I took the high range gearbox. It's a pretty good horn, I'll give it that. Yeah, I took the high range gearbox because overall I did have to drop to auto and low range, but the amount of time I was able to spend in high gear, I believe averaged out, is like I'd be better off using high gear than taking a low range, so I have the 3 low range options in the little river crossing I did. And yeah, next up is this thing. It's funny driving them back to back. The power's still solid on this. Like I said, I prefer this over the Derry because it still feels like it's got more guts to it, and it's a pretty good hauling machine, this thing. It was definitely not that great on off-road situations, but at least since they've added that active suspension thing, or whatever, the active axle to lift that thing up. Out of curiosity, has anyone ever actually put this axle back down since this has been an option? Because, I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool that it's there and it's liftable. Like, it'd be nice if they had the option to remove it, but I honestly don't care. I appreciate that they at least acknowledged that it was just a shit idea, and yeah, like in real life, like I said, all the videos I watched on YouTube, even the army themselves had either completely removed the axle, or at the very least had it lifted, but most of the videos I've seen, the army just taken it off, and I've seen them towing tanks and all sorts, so it wasn't like they needed that extra axle to spread the weight, or at least the army decided, who gives a shit, this axle just drags through everything and slows you down. So obviously, in fairness, they kind of got it pretty accurate to real life, and at least they've offered the chance to get it out of the way. But yeah, I've never put the thing back down since I've had this option. See, this is where I think this truck kind of gains ground and made up a bit, because this now as well, again, they added diffs, which is another thing I appreciate. They've made this a usable truck, and it's like not a bad one. It's still got its flaws, but yeah, cutting through that river and everything, I was able to at least stay in auto, which still gives me a speed advantage over the low range, and which, yeah, will help me shave a bit of time off overall. One thing with this though is the steering on it. Now they've fixed, say, enough other things, you keep going and keep improving them, and you just keep finding the new weakest link. Yeah, the steering on this is painfully slow, to be honest. And in a mission like this where I can actually get motoring, this was my second run, I believe. The first run I did was a little bit slower because, again, jumping from the 4520 to this, the 4520 you only have to do tiny little steering inputs. This thing you have to hold the steering flat out for like 3 seconds before you even get anything out of it, or anything meaningful. But yeah, for whatever reason, when I cut through the church, I clicked it too late, didn't click it in time or whatever, I cocked it up, and I didn't drop the wood off to the church, so by the time I got to this end, it was just like, yeah, it wouldn't let me finish the mission. But as you can see though, this thing is overall doing a much better time, really. I believe, was it 3:53, I think it was, that the Derry 4520 got. Yeah, this thing, I mean, what, I think it ends up being about 3:05 or something. I reckon I could get it probably just a tad under 3 minutes. Again, it was like, I wasn't trying to make it an absolute, like, scientific do 50 results and pick the best ones or anything. But then by the time I'd finished these, I actually thought, I just wanted to try something, so I thought I'll go and grab the GMC, whatever the bloody hell it's called, I can't even remember anymore. This one, the one that we've now been given all-wheel drive to, just because, yeah, like I say, the first Derry, the 3 whatever it's called, at least we get it for free. Whereas, yeah, the secondary is pretty expensive, but this thing, I mean, you get it for free pretty much at the start of the game. I know you have to eventually go to Lake Cov to get the all-wheel drive, but I was just curious to see what kind of time this could set, because this wasn't really built to be an off-road truck originally, although, as I've said before, I believe it kind of gets its own advantage, because it was always balanced with never being all-wheel drive in mind, and yeah, like I said, now they've added all-wheel drive, I don't think, and this is a good thing. This truck is headed in the direction trucks should generally, if anything, you want to see a slight buff to the situation. Like, this has become much more usable. Yeah, the Derry 3194, I can't even remember what the bloody old thing's called. Yeah, that's became a hell of a lot more usable, and like I say, it's just a shame. Fingers crossed they do eventually do something with the Derry 4520, because, like I said, I want to like it. It's not sort of like, as soon as I seen it in the game, I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a beast. I can't wait to drive that. Can't wait to get to level 26 or whatever it was. And yeah, it's just a little bit like, meh, when you finally get there. And this thing as well, I had to drop it down into low to stick the diffs on. It doesn't have diffs always on either. But it was just, yeah, to give it kind of a rough comparison. I mean, is this thing about 30 odd grand or something? And I think the stock Derry is about 140 odd grand. So yeah, you're talking 4 getting on 5 times as expensive. And I wouldn't say it's 5 times as as capable or anything. This is a bit of a dark horse, this vehicle now. This is a surprisingly capable vehicle. And I don't always use it because, as good as it is now, there's like, I'd still say the Tayga's better. It's got bigger tyres, more choice of tyres, etc, etc, more power. However, yeah, this thing has just like jumped way up the list. And again, money does come into it. I mean, that's part of the reason why I like the Loaf, because when I originally seen it, I was like, oh, a van for 11 grand, that's just going to be one of those vehicles that you use for 2 minutes and then skip over and move on to the other stuff. And the amount I've been able to do with the Loaf, because it's a goddamn horse of a vehicle, has been great. Whereas, yeah, the Derry is the opposite. Finally saved up 200 grand, bought it, and after driving it around for a few hours, I was like, this is shit. Sold it back and went and bought some other stuff, because it just wasn't worth the 200 grand sacrifice. The only reason I've got one on standby now, really, is since the money glitch. It took a matter of minutes to pay for. And, yeah, me going through here, by the way, I caught the trailer in the church. It's a bit of a weird one that they make you drive into that church as one of the drop-off points, because for a mission that's racing against the clock, there isn't really a sensible way in and out of the church car park thing. You can fly through and just ramp over the little grass verge, but obviously in real life that wouldn't, you probably wouldn't be doing that. But yeah, as this is against the clock, then such behaviours are actively encouraged. By me at least, anyway. Well, I don't need racing against the clock as an excuse to go ramping across everyone's garden. But yeah, this thing did it. In the end, I got about 320, but you see I got the trailer stuck in the church and then I hit a lamppost. I roughly calculated there were about 25 seconds-ish I cost myself. So yeah, I reckon this could get just under 3 minutes as well. So it's about on par with the first Derry. This one's obviously, yeah, it's just a bit slower. It can't stay in like high range as often. It needs to jump down to auto or low range without the diffs permanently on, but at least a turning circle. I tried to reverse and turn the trailer around with the other Derry, and Jesus Christ, the steering's horrific. Part of the reason I didn't repeat this mission loads is, yeah, driving the trailers back. I'll soon have trailers stacked everywhere, which, as you know, I'm not shy of doing, but I won't have room to finish the mission at some point. And in the end as well, I've tried to get this video out a little early tonight, because, yeah, yesterday I didn't even get a chance for insomnia to kick in, because people turned up about 8 in the morning and started digging my driveway up. It's been a complete cock-up. They were building work early, obviously it's my landlord's driveway. They laid a drive about 6 months ago, and then literally 2 days later they had to dig a fat channel right through the middle of it, because they forgot to lay, like, some seriously large electric cable. And then now I believe there's something wrong with the electric cable, so they're ripping the drive back up again. And yeah, about 10 foot outside my window, with some kind of jackhammer and mini digger and all sorts smashing the ground up outside. So hopefully I'm going to try and get to bed and get in some coma-like state before they get started, and hopefully I don't hear it all. So yeah, that's why it's a little bit of a quick one, and yeah, I thought it was interesting in the end. I still think this Derry wins. This was my first little run, and as you can see, it didn't go amazingly. I hit a tree stump. Fuck all tree stumps. That's about it. Anyway, yeah, that is about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.